This past weekend, we had a couple of anime conventions and got some brand new license announcements. I'm going to be discussing them in this video. Hello everybody, and welcome to this video where I'm going to go over a couple of the announcements that we got this past weekend. We had two big anime conventions happening, Anime Boston and Sakuracon. At Anime Boston, Vertical had a number of announcements, and Yen On gave us one new light novel announcement at their panel at Sakuracon. And not to be outdone, J-Novel Club announced a new book that they're going to be releasing, and it's kind of interesting for a couple of reasons, and well, we'll just get right into what's coming. So, first of all, let's talk about Vertical at Anime Boston. Now, they announced a brand new series that they've licensed, and then they announced a couple of other books. Now, two of these are so far standalone novels, and the other one is actually a continuation of a series that, well, I'm looking forward to, but and honestly, I was starting to doubt that we were ever going to get it. So let's get right into it. So the first thing that they announced was that they are going to be bringing out Nishio Asians series Katana Gatari. Now, this one, there were 12 volumes. They were relatively short. So what Vertical is doing is they are doing 3-in-1 omnibuses. So they're releasing 4 books in total, which will cover all 12. So there will be 3 volumes in each of the 4 books. This one was written by Nishio Asians a number of years ago. This is actually one of his earlier ones. And there was a 12-episode anime based on this series. It ran January to December of 2010. So for this one, this story takes place in the Edo era, where Yasura Shichika is the 7th head of the Kyoto School of Japanese Sword Martial Arts, living in Fusho Island with his sister Nanami. With the order from a female samurai general, Togame, he sets out for a trip to collect the 12 treasured swords created by a legendary swordsmith, Shikazaki Kiki. So I guess each story basically has to deal with each of the swords that he sets out to collect. I have heard some pretty good things about this series, and actually it's kind of exciting to me that we're getting a series that's set in a Japanese period piece, as opposed to, well, pretty much everything that we've had in English are either modern world, pure fantasy setting, or the closest that we have to period pieces are the Bakano books, but they're set in Europe and America. So yeah, it's kind of cool to have this sort of samurai period piece that we're going to be getting. I'm kind of excited about it. Now, again, like it said, they will be releasing them 3 books in each volume. They have the first one, they are aiming for a November 2018 release. This is the one downside of the print book companies, that when they start announcing stuff, it's usually at least like 8 months away if we're lucky. Now, also, they announced at this panel on Anime Boston, they announced that they were going to be releasing volume number 4 of Seraph of the End, Gurin Ichinose Catastrophe at 16. Now, I reviewed the first. Now, they released this as an omnibus themselves. There was 2 volumes in each book. So they've released the first 6, and then for whatever reason, we've never gotten the 7th and final volume for some time. Well, they have finally announced that they are bringing it out. It'll be released as book 4 here in North America, because like I said, they did 1, 2, and 3, which are actually 1 through 6. So they released them as an omnibus. I did read all 3 of those. And you know, it's funny, because I haven't read the manga Seraph of the End. I haven't even seen the anime. But I really liked those light novels. I thought they were really well done, and the characters and the world were very engaging. So I'm really glad that we're actually getting this last volume. Part of me kind of wonders, though, if the reasoning behind this is because in Japan they now have a new Seraph of the End. I guess they're prequels to the manga. It's a prequel series, and that one is Guren Ichinose World Resurrection at 19. So set 3 years after this first series. I am wondering if Vertical is going to announce the Guren Ichinose 19 series, and that's why they are now announcing that they're going to bring out this final volume, because I'm guessing that it is going to kind of be a bridge into the next series. That's my guess. Obviously, I have no inside track on this one, but it just seems kind of interesting to me that we do have a new prequel series going on that's set as a sequel to 16, and we're finally getting the last volume of 16 in English. Just saying. Now, another interesting title that they have announced, and this one is, well, it's interesting for a couple of reasons. First of all, it just sounds interesting. It's Serial Killer Detective, and they're looking at a fall 2018 release. At this point, there's only one volume in Japan, and now I don't know if this is going to be an ongoing series or if there is only just the one book. Like I said, as far as I can see, there's only the one book at this point, and that came out late last year. So it's, given the time, it's kind of unlikely that's going to be a series. The only reason that I think it might be is because it is by the same author as The Empty Box and Zeroth Maria, that being Eiji Mikage. So, kind of interesting. We are getting more work by Mikage. I've loved Empty Box, so I'm very curious about this one. The story goes, rising star detective Yuri meets her match when a trusted police confidant, a brilliant psychoanalyst, slightly botches a murder and refuses to claim it for his serial killer persona. The victim, an enigmatic young woman, turns out to have been no slouch either. Supposedly at the panel they described this as kind of a Dexter-esque type story, and like I said, when I'm reading it, I'm like, this could be a series. Like, this seems to be a setup for a series, but then again, it could be a standalone. I'm not too sure. If you have some insight, I'd love to hear it. But I think it's kind of interesting that we're getting another Mikage book. I have to kind of wonder if that means that Zeroth Maria has been doing well, which has made other companies sort of take note. Don't know. There's a lot of like backroom and politics and everything, it seems, in the whole licensing game. So especially with a lot of Japanese companies actually having financial stakes in these English language companies. So you're never too sure exactly what the deal is in terms of what they've decided to bring out. The final thing that they announced, and this one I know for certain, is a single volume. And that is a book called Dark Maidens. And now this one is releasing actually relatively soon. It's coming out in May. It's May 29th that they've got it set out for. And the novel is set at a school named the Virgin Mary Girls Academy, where Itsumi Shiraishi, the beautiful daughter of the school's director, recently died. Whether the death was an accident, a suicide, or a murder remains a mystery, known only to the lily that Itsumi clutched in her hand as she died. Rumors begin to circulate that the members of the literature club that Itsumi supervised were responsible for her death. With leadership of the club transferring to Sayuri Sumikawa, the club members continue their practice of reading short stories they wrote to each other. One week, they meet to read stories with the theme of Itsumi Shiraishi's death, with each of the 5 members intent on using their own story to discover who among them murdered Itsumi. Sounds actually really cool. So like standalone mystery type, thriller type novel. It actually inspired a live-action film in 2017, and what's kind of interesting about this one is that the screenplay was written by Mari Okada, and this is the first time that she's written a script for a live-action project. Now, this segues beautifully into J-Novel Club's announcement, which is that they are actually going to be publishing an English version of Mari Okada's autobiography. That's called From Truant to Anime Screenwriter, My Path to Ohana and the Anthem of the Heart. And what's also interesting about this is that it's being translated by Frog-kun. Now, I've mentioned Frog-kun before on the video. I made a mistake. I thought that Frog-kun was a male. I do greatly apologize to Frog. I thought for some reason I had seen a picture and they referenced Frog and it was a guy. I guess I made a huge mistake because apparently Frog is a girl. Again, I apologize. But I think it's pretty awesome. Like, this was sort of a thing that Frog kind of picked up, as far as I understand it, as a bit of a passion project and and I think that she kind of worked on it for ANN. I'd have to take a look. But in any case, apparently she was approached by Sam from J-Novel Club, and he's like, I want to publish this thing. Do you want to translate it? So I'm really excited for Frog. It's cool that J-Novel's kind of branching out a little bit. So from the writer of Ohana, The Flower We Saw That Day, and The Anthem of the Heart, comes the next expressive tale of the fight against one's own demons. Mari Okada grew up in rural Chichibu, a truant for most of her adolescent life. She observed school life from afar, often refusing to leave the confines of her room. But with the fateful encounter of a visiting school teacher, Okada found a way through the echelons of school, using her untapped skill of turning words on a page into a unique voice that truly captured the essence of youthful spirit. From her own personal desires to leave home and find a place in the world outside, Okada came face to face with her own anxiety and let her stories speak out on her behalf of her struggles to truly find peace with the world around her. From truant to anime screenwriter, my path to Anohana and the Anthem of the Heart is a gripping autobiography that details the not-so-successful life of one of anime's biggest screenwriters as she faces the hardest challenge of all, finding herself through her own works. Finally comes the title from Yen On, and arguably this is either the most predictable license of the lot, or it's one of the bigger surprises of the lot. It kind of depends on where you fall on this one. So Yen On had a panel at Sakuracon, and they announced that they have licensed Tsujo Kogeki ga Zentai Kogeki da Nikai Kogeki no Okasap wa Suki Desuka. This one, or we just call it Do You Like Your Mom? It translates more like to Do You Like Your Mom? Her normal attack is 2 attacks at full power. That's why the much longer title. This is the one that became kind of infamous for its marketing campaign for Mother's Day. I can't remember, how did it go? Like, if you brought your mom into the bookstore, you got like the book for free or something like that. I can't remember. There was like some wacky kind of deal that they had that immediately added notoriety onto this series. I think it's just kind of notoriety because it features a mom. The story is, Masato thought he was part of a random survey, but when he gets involved in a secret government scheme, he winds up trapped in a game world. Even more surprising, his mother is there too. Now, again, I think this was partly the ad campaign. I think it's partly the fact that we have a mom, a doting mother apparently, playing a prominent role. The one upside I guess I can see of this is that if she's a bit objectified, at least I won't feel like that dirty an old man, because she'll probably be within my age bracket. But they've released 4 volumes in Japan. The 5th volume is actually releasing on April 20th. Now, this is kind of where this book becomes interesting. First of all, is it a surprise? Well, on the one hand, no, because when we take a look at the kind of stuff that Yen On has been licensing recently, stuff that they're going to be releasing, like, Reborn as a Vending Machine, getting into the sort of the spider reincarnation, the slime reincarnation. It's clear that the sort of isekai titles that Yen seems to be going after are the ones that are a little weird, a little quirky, a little different, and certainly ones that have a lot of sort of media savvy hype, and that have gotten a lot of notice for one reason or another, not always because they're great books. So on that hand, I would say this is not a surprise. And in fact, Sean Gaffney he called it. He said that this thing was going to be picked up by Yen. At least that was his feeling on it. He was totally right. The only reason that we doubted it, and this is why it's kind of still a surprise, is that this is a Fujimi Fantasia Bunko book. Now, we've talked about Fujimi on this channel before. I'm going to put my iPad down because it's getting heavy and I talk a lot with my hands. And that's all the licenses. So if you only were interested in the licenses, you can turn this off now, I guess. But I'm going to talk for a minute about this. So Fujimi Fantasia, now it's kind of weird. Okay, so here's the deal. So Fujimi, we've talked about. They licensed a couple of their big titles with Tokyo Pop a good number of years ago. Tokyo Pop went pop, and Fujimi was kind of left out in the cold. A lot of their titles got canceled, some of them with only 2 or 3 volumes left to go to complete the series, others with only 2 or 3 volumes released, and pretty much ever since then, Fujimi's books have not been licensed in English. Now, Death March to the Parallel World, Death March to the Parallel Rhapsody or whatever, anyway, I can't even remember. I've read one book of it. Death March is a Fujimi title. At least, again, here's where it's kind of weird. So if you look at it, it's listed under Fujimi, but it doesn't have the Fujimi Fantasia Bunko logo on the book. So I don't know, it's probably owned by Fujimi in some way, but it's not specifically being released under the same banner that this book is being released under. And this is the banner that we have been pretty much locked out of in terms of English official releases. So this is kind of exciting because this is the company that has a ton of other stuff that we've all been talking about, including Date Alive, that we haven't gotten in English. And so on the one hand, a lot of people are kind of like, does this mean that Yen has managed to break the bubble? Have they managed to finally break Fujimi and we're going to start getting the Fujimi Fantasia titles? Or is this just an anomaly because this title had so much odd hype around it and so much odd media story are surrounding it that Fujimi's kind of like letting that one go because it's potentially not the cash cow that other titles are? It's really hard to tell. So, I mean, I am definitely on the hopeful bench, which says that if this title comes out and does well, and Yen, of course, sticks to their guns and keeps releasing it regardless of how well it does, it might mean that we'll see some other Fujimi Fantasia titles. That I'm kind of hopeful for. On the other hand, like I said, it is entirely possible that this is just an anomaly, or it could be, like I said, just a test to see whether, you know, an English publisher can be trusted. Go to LND, go to the LNDB I think it's .org, the light novel database, look up Fujimi Fantasia, and take a look at all the titles that are listed there and tell me you're not excited that the idea that we could get even a quarter of those titles in English would be fantastic. So that's what's going on. Like I said, because it's a Fujimi title, that's where it's a surprise. Because it's so all weird and quirky and kind of media hyped and savvy, that's where it's totally not a surprise, especially that it's picked up by Yen. Like I said, given the kind of stuff that they've been recently licensing, really not that huge a surprise. And that's all we've got so far. This is just the start, though. Like, you know, we're really starting into convention season now. The end of March is always sort of where that happens. But then we start getting into a lot in like May and into the summer. And so we'll probably have a bunch of other light novel releases and licenses being announced in the next couple of months. J-Novel Club, I'll give them shouts out. You know, of course, they gave us this book, but they've already given us a couple of new series announcements over the past couple of months. And because of their business model, those titles are already being released and being released in the next month or two. So expect that we'll probably have some more J-Novel license announcements as we go along. And then we'll probably at this point won't have any major announcements from the physical publishers, except for the ones that they start making at conventions. I believe Anime Expo will probably be the next big convention where a lot of these companies will have panels, and they almost always have announcements for manga and light novels that they're coming out. So that'll probably be the next time that I do a video like this. I don't honestly do videos for the J-novel ones just because they usually announce like one at a time. But if you do go to my channel and go to the community tab, I pretty much always will post whenever J-Novel Club announces something. I'll post it there so that at least if you're subscribed to the channel, you should see that in your feed. So there we go. Let me know of all these titles, which ones sound kind of cool, sound kind of interesting. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you're brand new to the channel and you love light novels, you should consider subscribing. Like I said, I do these news articles, plus I do 2 to 3 reviews a week, as well as a weekly countdown of the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.